Good morning and afternoon. It is 9 a.m. Pacific. Welcome to the Sharing Show. So joining me today, as always, David, the Workday Sharing Guy, and Denise, and I'm Kane. Welcome to the Sharing Show. Firstly, we're going to just discuss about how we're using Zoom today. So you can use it to contact us via the chat button at the bottom. Make sure when you click on that chat, you change it to everyone so everybody sees the chat question that you put through. We really want to make this show interactive. So as much as you want to chat, please go ahead. And now I'm going to hand it over to Denise for the next part of the show.
Logan, unfortunately, is not feeling well. She's not able to make it. But for those who don't know Logan on this show, let's just pretend you didn't hear what I just said. Denise, it's asking me for a pin.
Thanks, Logan. Our pin will pull up in just a second. If you go ahead and open a browser to kahoot.it, it will ask you for a pin here, and we will get started on our Kahoot. Kahoot has changed their format a little bit. There is one quiz question now on the survey, so we'll have survey questions, and then the last question there will be a right or wrong answer. So if you can see the pin on the screen, it's 315278 or 315278.
So 315278, and you open the browser to kahoot.it. It can be on your phone, any browser.
All right, here we go.
Okay, there's no right answer here. You're interested in knowing more about calculated fields. Okay, red, no interest, or you just don't want to know, or somebody else does it. Blue is you have no interest because you already know it all, omniscient. Yellow, some interest, but you're too busy with other tasks. Or green, you have a lot of interest, if you only had some help. Okay, so a lot of interest. Oh, we have two Omni Calc Field gurus. And everyone else is either too busy or has a lot of interest. Okay. Have you taken calculated field training directly from Workday? No, you're self-taught, or you don't touch Calc Field. Okay, not yet, but you're planning to. Yes, you've taken one, or green is yes, you've taken two Calc Field classes. Okay, a lot of people have taken one class. No interest or haven't, and then, oh yeah, some people have taken two classes. Okay. We have one more poll. How would you rate yourself with calculated fields? There's 4 levels here. You're an absolute beginner, or you just don't touch calc fields. Okay, so that's red. Blue is you're a novice. You can edit some existing ones, and you understand like true-false condition, for example. Yellow is intermediate, so you know evaluated expression and somewhat lookup related value. Advances, you know lookup related value in other RBOs, like extract single instance, extract multiple instance. Okay, I would say this is a pretty high level here. We've got close to 40 total who are either intermediate or advanced. Okay, check the box. Okay, there's the right answer. Return 0 on error exists in order to force an error to happen in certain cases. Or blue is avoid an error in certain cases. Yellow is set a base value of 0 if you're going to calculate averages. And then green is none of the above. So what's that checkbox for? To return 0 on error. Now we've done this in one of the workshops, so some people knew that or maybe seen this question before from me, but it's used to avoid an error in certain cases. The error would just be forced on its own, and it doesn't have to do with calculating averages. So a lot of people got that. Congrats to those who got that right. And this one doesn't matter that much, although Charlie, congrats. This is not the win a t-shirt one, but congrats also to Nathan and Jack M for getting the right answer. But the win a t-shirt comes at the end. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we have David, the Workday Sharing Guy.
Okay, hi everyone. Hi everyone, this is David. I have a disclaimer, handshake agreement with my previous manager at Workday. I used to write the classes for Workday. I was employee 149, hired back in 2007. Just last week, exactly last week from today was my 12-year anniversary. Not that I can remember to the day, but part of the agreement here is that everybody knows that I'm not representing in any way Workday, and everybody who's on the phone, we're all just customers. We are sharing with each other. Don't take anything anyone says as anything official from Workday. It's knowledge sharing. This is not training. I highly recommend you take the Workday training. Okay, so there's a post. You could see over 3,000 hits on this post for calculated field share-a-thons. So I'm going to talk about something called email code, but first let me talk about the share-a-thons that happened. Yesterday was a non-RBO calculated field. Sometimes we call it the beginner advanced level, but it actually got pretty advanced. You'll see some of that today from some of our guests. Tomorrow, and there's still time to register if you find this on community. If you register before tonight, we'll get you into tomorrow. Tomorrow is the more advanced, but it's not necessarily advanced or not advanced. It's just focused on RBOs. So for example, look up related value, extract single instance, extract multiple instance, sum related instance, and count related instance. Those final two could be used to get an average, which came up earlier on the Kahoot. Okay, and even the return zero on error that we just discussed, a lot of people know what that's used for, so maybe we won't do too much of that in tomorrow's share-a-thon. So there was somebody in yesterday's share-a-thon that was asking about keeping track of calc fields and using naming conventions. For example, my naming convention ZCF, that's becoming more and more popular. It puts all your calculated fields at the bottom. But the question specifically was, how do I find out which calc fields aren't used anywhere? And it's much easier now than it used to be to write a report on calc fields and see if the where used tab is empty. Now, she did share with us that she had thousands of calc fields. I don't remember the number. It might have been more than 3,000. And we were looking at one that wasn't used anywhere. And so we had a little, let's give a t-shirt to whoever guesses the closest number in the chat. So somebody guessed 13.4. I remember making fun of that person for putting a decimal point in their guess. But man, that person was very close, within one. So 12.57. So she learned how to do that in yesterday's novice or non-RBO calc field share-a-thon. So congrats, and the t-shirt's heading out to the person who guessed 13.4. Okay, so this is the email code. This is for people on community who said, well, I've registered, I haven't received an email yet. So late tonight, we'll go out the email so that everybody knows how to log in Thursday morning. So this is only a snippet picture of how I used an email code. Well, the email code is the first two of your email, and then after the @ sign, the next two of your email. So when this came up initially, somebody had asked, how many calc fields does it take to do this? Or I put it as a challenge. And there was someone who said, oh, I know I could do this in 3 calc fields. And I challenged that. I think that it's going to take more. How many calc fields would you need to create a calculated field to get an email code? It's an interesting challenge. I use a naming convention, always 3 characters. I take off a vowel in the first word unless it's an evaluate expression. So FRD is format date. So what happens when you format a date in Workday? So I had a challenge question posted almost 3 years ago. What happens if your user of a report wants to see only the month and the year? They don't want to see year, month, and day. On the right, you see what used to show as a hire date, but they don't want to see the actual day. They'd like to easily be able to group together those who were hired in January 2015, those who were hired in February 2015. But the format date kind of messed it up because format date changes it from a date to text. And so on the right, you see what happens. The 01-2015 is followed by 01-2016. Then you see 02-2015. So you'll see challenge questions down here. How do you fix that? But it was just something that is related to yesterday's Calc Field share-a-thon.
Next on our agenda, we have Sarah from Texas with an RBO Calc Field ask.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi. So you have the ask here, and this is where I get confused when it comes to what I consider like a bit more advanced calculated fields. It's when we have to start working with related business objects. I think working on the the direct data sources, direct business object is fairly intuitive. But so my question is, let's pretend that my base is active workers, and I'm pulling some employee information. And then I need to pull some benefit plans. And then I also need to report on the last four of a dependent social if the dependent is a spouse, like all of that information on one report. I get lost on how to even get started on something like this outside of I can pull my employees' information. So the fields that I'm looking for on this report are from worker, like the employee ID, employee name, work location. And then from benefits, it's the benefit plan for medical, assuming the person's enrolled in it. And then from the dependents, it's the dependent name if they're a spouse on that same benefit plan, and then the dependent birthday and month. How do I pull this?
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing. Now people use the chat to help, and we'll do this when we have asks. Feel free to use the chat and have discussion while the show continues.
So let's do our first share on Report Administrator Dashboard with Afshan from the UK.
Hello. So I wanted to share one of the reports on the Report Administrator Dashboard because I think it's related to the whole subject of calculated fields. So if you're like me and you lose your calc fields quite often and you can't remember what you called them, there's a really useful report that Workday have provided, and it's also within the Report Administrator Dashboard. So to add, if you don't already have that dashboard, to add it, you would maintain dashboard, go in the list to the Report Administrator Dashboard, click Edit, and then add the Workday standard items, which are shown in the slide deck there. And the one that I'm really wanting to talk about today is recently updated calculated fields. So this report will show you your calculated field, and it's the link to the calculated field. It will also show you when it was last updated, the business object that it's on, and where it's used. So you've got everything in one place. And the great thing about this is that you can edit this to suit your own needs. I've gone with the standard Workday setup of 7 days, so it shows me everything that was being updated in the last 7 days. But you could change that to 30 days or something else if that suits you better. You can also select a business object if you're looking for something specific. There's a couple of things to note. The calculated fields that you see are all calculated fields in your Workday system because they're not owned by you or anyone, they're collective. And if you can't see any of these reports or the dashboard, you need to speak to your security administrator. So I hope some people find that useful. As well as that one report, there's the 5 other reports that you can add. They're all Workday standard reports, and they're really useful for reporting and report management. Thank you.
Thank you, Afshan. Up next, we're going to do a share with Anthony from South Carolina about using substring calculated fields.
Thank you. So I actually had an ask from a coworker here. We have a custom report that they're using a report as a service for. So they wanted the business title out of Workday. Well, we had it set up to where you share, you had the business title concatenated with the job code. That value was being sent. They didn't like that, and they wanted to remove it. So what I ended up doing, I actually had to build a calc field, several calc fields, to be able to substring out that job code. So basically just give the business title without the job code value. So as you can see, that's the hierarchy for that calc field, but in what it really does is it's an evaluated expression that looks for the job code to exist in the business title, and if it does, then it performs a substring text from position 1 to where the end of the actual title without the job code. So what this calc field does is it measures the length of the business title and the length of the job code, and it subtracts them. It's basically doing the subtraction from those two values. So it really is pretty simple, but it's just taking the two lengths and subtracting them. And this is just the text length calc fields where I take the length of the business title and the length of the job code. So you can see the business title field has the job code value, and the substring business title is basically going from position 1 to the difference in those two values and just outputting that. And I actually had it to where it eliminated blank space or empty space on either side so that it would be a nice output value. I don't know, I went really fast on that. So if there are any questions or anything, any comments, just let me know.
Thanks, Anthony. Up next, we have another share for Calc Field prompts for employee ID with Augustine from Panama.
Hello, this is Agustin. I hope everybody can hear me properly. The situation on this field we started is that when we went go live with Workday, we were looking for an option to be able to look for multiple employees ID at once. Obviously, if you got a worker prompt, you'll get to go and select one by one on the prompt. So what we did, and we started this by some suggestion that we see on Workday community is we created a worker list prompt that is started with a true false that evaluate if the delimited prompt that I'm going to show you next is the same one as employee ID. So we got a delimited prompt that was created on the global business object. It's a concatenated text. And what we do is we got a prompt text one, which is something that comes by default on Workday, and we put it enclosed within two pipe symbols. The pipe symbols I have to add it. I was not able to find it on Workday. Not sure they have been added or something, but we added two pipe symbol, one at the start or the beginning. This will give our results for whatever the employee or the requester is putting on the prompt. It will be enclosed in the two pipes like you see on the result sample, for example. We do something similar with the employee ID, and we get the employee ID and we put it the same in two pipes. That's the way we are able to search one against the other in the same candidate field, but this one is on the worker value. So what we do, if you see on the first one, is we try to do that whatever they put in the delimited prompt, it's contained within the employee ID. So we do what is going to be like a reverse search. Instead of looking the employee ID on the delimit, look the prompt that is on the employee ID. We do the search on the reverse way. This way we can look for any employee ID on multiple times. And we also added a prompt text is blank. That's way we can imitate that option that Word comes by default, like ignore if blank option. If the reporter doesn't put anything on this prompted, it allows to continue on the reports. Hope this is helpful and hope this providing assistance here.
Thank you, Augustine.
Up next, we have a word from our co-sponsors.
Actually, I realize that there's some words that are said that people are at different levels. So when Augustine says delimiter, that's an important word for people to know. And you don't really need to know it, but if you answered yes, you're interested in Calc Fields, and you'd like to know more Calc Fields, if only you had more help, or if only you had more time. I like to start with substring. And the question I like to ask people is, when you create a substring Calc Field, what do you think Workday needs to know? And they need to know where you're going to start and where you're going to end. But sometimes you don't know where you're going to start, where you're going to end. It's not a very specific value. You have to go and get the length of a field, and then you'll know where to start or end. Or you want to get something between two delimiters, like an open parentheses and a closed parentheses. Or you want to get a value that's between two pipe characters, or what Augustine was showing. So I use delimiter as a way of helping verify that people place themselves in the right level of Calc Fields. If you're advancing Calc Fields, I would think you know what delimiter is. Not necessarily. So this is all things that we're doing in these share-a-thons, and in small groups. We're starting to put together small groups of people who are at the same level, so that you could have a better learning experience on Calc Fields using workshops of like 6 to 12 people. So now a word from our co-sponsors. Logan, we look forward to having you rejoin us. I'll just use my normal voice here. So this month's airing, we have co-sponsors here. So Humanity is employee scheduling software for Workday. You can visit Humanity at Workday Rising Orlando. For everyone who's going to be at the pre-Rising Share-a-thon, I have several things I'm going to tell people about Humanity, and I'll spend some time at their booth as well. Meanwhile, between now and Rising, you could check out Humanity online. Someone who needs no introduction, my favorite co-host, Kane from Dovetail.
Thanks, David. So Yes, so I work for Dovetail Software. We're a Workday certified partner, and here's just a few pictures actually. So on the left here, me with Logan and my team in Vienna last year at Workday Rising, and then of course on the right there with Dave Duffield at one of the previous shows. And then here is David and I a few months ago in Vegas at the Workday Hackathon. I guess about a year ago is when we sponsored the Share-a-thon in Vegas last Rising. And that's where David and I started talking about a show such as this. So that's where it all began. And then finally, just, what we actually do at Dovetail. So we're a HR help desk, case management, employee portal, HR knowledge base, and HR service delivery analytics. So you can see some of the screenshots on there, and there's a bit of text on the right. We'd love to meet you all at Rising in Orlando, and we will be in the expo room. I will be there myself. And if you come up to us at Dovetail booth and mention the sharing show, we have a special gift for you. So, back over to you, David.
Okay, all right. I hope you don't mind me adding like special gift. You've got some things, and then possibly we will have, no promises, but we will have several different sizes of T-shirts that say the sharing show on it. And perhaps on the back, I made the podium. Not quite sure yet what we'll put on the back. But Denise, this is over to you.
Thanks, David. Let's see who will make the podium this week. So this is our quiz Kahoot. All of these do have right and wrong answers. So you're just going to log back into that browser with your kahoot.it. And we'll get a new pin. You may have to refresh. The pin for this is 527847. So 527847.
And Denise, do we have 3 quiz questions or 4? I think it's 3.
I think it's 3 too, David.
Yep. Okay. This might be one of our most challenging yet. Over 55. We're at 55. Over 55. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. What data type does the format date calc field return? Is the date, single instance, number, or text? Date, single instance, number, or text. A format date, an FRD, returns text, right? Format date returns text. That's the issue with David Epstein challenge question number 5. You change from the date to text, and all of a sudden everything's dated 01 for January, ignoring the year, and then 02 February. But that's not how we wanted it sorted. That's part of that challenge question I mentioned earlier. Congratulations to Dan, you're 5 points ahead of KT. Augustine, you are close, as is Bren, and then Priya. You're all within 13 points of each other. Let's go to question 2. Which Calc Field function is similar to a report filter? Is it a true-false condition? Is it concatenate? Is it evaluate expression, or is it a sum-related instance? And the report filter, if you've ever done one, looks very much like a true-false condition. Callie, you jumped up to the front, 1960, 1923. Oh, big difference then. John S., Chris M., welcome back. Augustine, you're still up there, and Charlie, very close. We're at 140 point difference between the 5 of you. Which Calc Field function might prompt you for a delimiter? A format date, a substring, a text constant, or a deli sandwich maker? All right, the answers are in. Let's see who got it fast and who got it right. When you create a substring, you might need delimiters, like the left parentheses, the right parentheses, the ones that I mentioned. And John S., congratulations. Chris M., you've moved up to 2nd place, and Augustine, you're back into the top 3. So congratulations to all 3. Any of you, if you are at Rising, for sure when you drop by the Dovetail booth, you will get something. I'm thinking that we'll say on the back, I made the podium. Okay, we're ready to wrap this up, Kane. And then, the post-show open mic is going to include also For those who are interested in talking more about Rising, talking more about Calc Fields, and Kane will stay on also for more about Dovetail. All of these in the fantastic open mic coming up.
Thanks, David. So thank you all, David and Denise, and special thank you to our guests for joining the show today. As David mentioned, we publish this on our YouTube channel, so head over there, subscribe, click the notification button, and you'll get notified when this episode is live. And as David said, we're going to head over to the post show now, and I'm going to just sign off. So all that's left to say is everybody have a great workday.